guys, welcome back to my channel and thank you for watching. Today's video is going to be a tutorial to show you how I made these bride and groom Lego cake toppers. So let's get started. I've cut out a template of a Lego person and I will link below the image that I used for this. And I'm just going to start kind of deconstructing his body a bit. It's a bit morbid, but I cut off the head and the arms, and I'm going to use the bulk of that body to start my bride figure. I'm going to start with my bride, and I am modeling the dress after the actual bride's dress that I'm making this figure for. So I'm going to add some Tylose powder to mine because I don't have a lot of time for it to set up, so I want it to be really nice and firm. But if you don't have Tylose powder, you can just make these a couple days in advance and you should be fine. My dress is going to be really simple, just all white, one piece. So after I roll that out to a nice thickness, I'm going to use a really sharp knife, and using my template, I'm just going to cut around the edges. Once that's done, you can just set it aside to dry, and I'm going to move on to my groom. I'm following the exact same steps to cut out the body, but the groom does have more details, so I'm using my template to mark out his legs and just the indents in the bottom half of him. I'm using the back of a knife to do this, and for like the indented part of his leg, I'm just rolling a skewer. I just went over, if you lose the shape of the legs as you're doing this, just keep going over it. It took me about 10 minutes to get the final shape. So if you start to indent it and he kind of squishes out a bit, don't worry, just kind of reshape him and move on. So once the main parts of both my bodies are done, I am going to move on to the other features. And using a piping tip, I'm just cutting out 2 circles for the necks. For their heads, I'm rolling out 2 balls of yellow fondant that are the exact same size, and I'm just going to shape those using my countertop, just kind of like twisting them in my fingers, but also pressing down to get that flat bottom and top. I held those up to my template to make sure they were the right size, and then I moved on to the other parts of the body. I'm just basically continuously using my template and holding it up to each bit of this Lego person just to make sure I have all the proportions right. So I'm going to do the little hands, and then the wrist piece, and then finally the arms. I'm setting everything aside before I attach it to my Lego person just so they can firm up a bit. And moving on to the top hat for my Lego Groom. I'm just pushing that against the counter just like I did with the heads and making sure I have the right size. Moving on to the faces, I'm just going to use some fondant to create mine, but you could also paint them on if you have a steady enough hand with a food marker or black food coloring with a fine tip paintbrush. The only difference for the faces is that I'm using some red fondant to create a little set of lips for the bride, and you could also add some eyelashes. I didn't really think about that when I was making these, but that probably would have been a nice addition. So now that most of my details are done, I'm going to start putting both these characters together. For the groom, he's going to have his white front, and I just freehand the design looking at a picture, and I will also link the picture that I used for the bride and groom below so you can see that as well. I attached that with some water, and then I also added a little pocket and 2 white buttons. And then using some black food gel and a fine tip paintbrush, I just added on his little bow tie and some black buttons as well. These toppers were not going to be eaten, so I used a toothpick to secure his head. I also added a little bit of water to that as well, just to make it extra strong. And then I'm going to be attaching his arms and his little hands with water as well. I rolled out a circle of black fondant for the brim of his top hat and then used another toothpick to secure that to his head. So next I'm going to be attaching my bride's arms and hands, and then for her head I added some brown hair in the same kind of style as the bride's, and I just used my modeling tool to kind of rake in some more like texture into the hair so it didn't just look like flat. Once I got the shape how I wanted it, I just let that sit for a couple minutes to firm up and then attach that to the body using a toothpick. And then you're done. Here they are, all dressed up and ready to go. I put them on top of this groom's cake I made, and if you want to see how to make a Lego cake similar to this, I will link that video below. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, and I hope you liked this video.